So you want to break down my responses, filled with contradictions and misunderstandings, yet you do not explicitly list any contradictions or any misunderstandings. So let's go through this. Calling me out for straw man arguments is a classic deflection tactic because I'm tired of trying to reply to you on the forum because it's difficult to switch back and forth between the content of your reply and the actual reply screen. And sometimes the stupid fucking device just deletes my entire reply and I have to start over. So you're getting a video. Deflection. Calling something you don't like a deflection tactic doesn't make it true. I mean, I'll just use your own words against you. You seem to think that if you say something enough times, it becomes fact, but that's not how logic or discourse works. You're correct. Just because you're calling it a deflection tactic over and over again doesn't make it fact. That's not how logic or discourse works. See, you're not interested in logic or discourse. You're interested in achieving the end goal that you desire, which is why you're using straw man arguments. You're not replying to what I'm saying. You're not addressing what I'm saying. You're replacing what I'm saying with what you want to declare that I'm saying. That's a deflection tactic, and that's a straw man argument. That's a fact. That's objective. What you're saying is subjective. What I'm saying is objective. Let's see here. Let's see. I'm not addressing your points, but you're the one engaging with the criticisms of your own flawed analogies. That doesn't even make any sense. What is that supposed to mean? I'm engaging with the criticisms of my own flawed analogies? I'm not engaging with any criticisms. I'm making factual statements. There's no criticisms there. So you're using the wrong word. Again, you're attempting to inject a straw man argument into this. As a matter of fact, let me make sure I'm doing this right, because maybe I'm using that word incorrectly. So I'll check. What's a straw man argument?
According to Wikipedia, a straw man fallacy is the informal fallacy of refuting an argument different from the one actually under discussion, while not recognizing or acknowledging the distinction. One who engages in this fallacy is said to be attacking us.
So there you go. That's precisely what you're doing. So I am using the word correctly. I just want to make sure. If we're going to have a logic or discourse, as you've described, I want to make sure I'm using the word correctly, and that's exactly what you're doing. Now, you assert that sex is hardware. It is hardware. This is hardware. This is hardware. What do you think it is? Do you think it's software? Does this look like software to you? It's hardware. Hello? Guess what this is? It's hardware. Where's the logical fallacy here? Where's the improper analogy? Where's the criticism? You're literally hardware. Claiming this is a literal statement. Yes, it is literal. Literally, you're hardware. We're not talking about complexity. Yeah, this is a hell of a lot more complex than a phone from 1993. Does that change the fact that it's hardware? We're not talking about the distinction between simple hardware and complex hardware. Either it's hardware or it's not hardware. It's pretty simple here. Talk about splitting hairs. What's that get you? Okay, so humans are complex hardware. Actually, I told you that humans are extraordinarily complex machines. What's that get you? What's your end goal by making that statement? I want you to address that actual point. What is your objective? What is the point of eliciting what I've already told you multiple times, that human beings are extraordinarily complex hardware? What's your point? Is there a point? You're making a point without a point. You're implying a point with no point. What kind of logical fallacy is that? It's probably not a straw man. It's probably another kind of logical fallacy. Gender is merely software. It is. It is merely software. Ignores the biological basis that informs gender. You're going to have to explain that to me. It sounds like you're trying to weasel word around the fact that your hardware can influence gender. I've already said this. You sound like you want to make it like I'm wrong. So you're trying to change the words and then say I'm not saying that. But biological basis that informs gender itself. Again, you're trying to create a direct tie between the hardware and the gender, and this is a logical fallacy. This is since your statement doesn't make any sense, I'm just going to use your statement against you. This analogy falls apart when you try to apply it to human complexity, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. Or what's this other part here? The the biological basis that informs gender itself. It sounds like you're just trying to use different words to say the same thing. That your hardware influences the software. Well, of course it does. The software has to be designed for the hardware. Duh. Um, you speak of software as if it's something completely separate and easily alterable. It is something completely separate and it is easily alterable. You just have to choose to. You choose not to. I choose to. It is easy. I can choose to be expression wise, not hardware wise, anything I want tomorrow. If I decide I want to be a clown tomorrow, I could be a clown tomorrow. If I decide I want to be a ballerina tomorrow, I could be a ballerina tomorrow. Okay, if I decide I want to go around and paint my fingernails and wear earrings, I can just do that because the software is easily alterable. I can just choose to alter it any way I want. I don't understand what's a. Are you telling me you're a simple creature? I don't mean that in a derogatory manner. I mean that literally. Are you telling me that you cannot alter your personality or your method of expression? That it's difficult for you to change that? I find it rather easy. Not just a theme that you can change on a phone. Yes, it is. It literally is. You can choose to speak differently. You can choose to hold your body differently. You can choose to behave differently. You can decide you like this instead of that. You can choose to wear this color clothing or that style of clothing instead of this color or that style of clothing. You can literally choose that anytime you want, any way you want. That's the whole point. It's software. You can just, you're a user, not a program. You can literally change it anytime you want. If you choose not to, that's on you. That doesn't mean you can't change it. You just choose not to. It's a choice. I mean, is it influenced? Oh, yes. It's influenced by many things. Oh, a whole lot of things. Um, and I fight with those things all the time. Those things are social constructs that we create where society tells us this is bad. But then I just stop and I think, if I ignore the social construct, if I just pretend the social construct doesn't exist, is there anything intrinsically wrong with that? Now, maybe you have difficulty doing that. I mean, maybe you're a simpler creature, and I really don't mean that in a derogatory manner. Some people have more difficulty being users. They're more like programs. And okay, if that's the way you are, that's the way you are. But that is a, what do you call that? There's a word for that. Where you're using yourself as the example to decide all other examples. There's a phrase for that. I forget what it is. You'll figure it out. You'll probably accuse me of doing it. That's what you seem to be doing here a lot. It's rooted deeply ingrained biological and psychological factor. Psychological factors are software. Psychology is just another word for software. Okay, so you're agreeing with me, and it's not ingrained in biology. There is no biology. There is no biology in gender. None. Name one thing, name one single thing that is gender based, the way I describe gender, not the synonym for sex. And I can show you a point in human history where that thing didn't exist. Men like guns. For thousands of years, there was no such thing as guns. So, how can men like guns? As a biological factor. Okay? How could something that doesn't exist be built into our biology? It can't be. It can't be. Okay? There is no biological basis for gender. Gender is neurological. Name one thing, name anything that you declare is biologically ingrained in our gender, and I can show you a point in human history where that thing didn't exist, which means therefore it cannot be ingrained in our biology. These are all social constructs. These are things we make up. We choose to do this. Now, you choose to do it long enough, it becomes a pattern. It becomes a habit. It becomes an ingrained social construct that we pass on from generation to generation. That doesn't change the fact that it's one piece of software teaching the other piece of software, this is the way we do it. It's not your biology teaching you. Your biology doesn't know what weapons are. Your biology doesn't know what guns are, or arrows, or slings, or spears. Your biology doesn't know what fighting is. Your biology doesn't know what hate and love is. Your biology has no idea what any of that stuff is. It's biology. It's hardware. It's like saying the Apple computer knows it's running Microsoft Office. No, it doesn't. It has no idea what Microsoft Office is. It can't comprehend what Microsoft Office is. It's just software running on the hardware. No, I did not state humans aren't special. I never said those words. Not once. If you alter the context and intent of my words, you are not speaking my words. I said humans aren't special in the way you're trying to imply they are. That's what I said. And that's not the same thing as you state that humans aren't special. Not the same thing. And you know it. That's being a dishonest conversationalist. You're lying. Trying to elevate the discussion by comparing us to machines. That's not elevating. That's de-elevating. That's reducing us to something lesser. You think we're special. We're not. The only thing special we have is our consciousness. The software is the only thing that's special. Literally. We are just complex machines. Where's the room for emotional depth and consciousness? Software. Human relationships. Software. Reducing us to mere machines strips away what makes us uniquely human. No, it doesn't. Because the machinery is not what makes us uniquely human. The software is what makes us uniquely human. The complexity of our neural network, that's what makes us uniquely human. That's literally what I told you already. I told you over and over again what makes us people and not animals is our ability to decide our software, to write our software, to code our software. That's what makes us people. That's what makes us special. That's what gives us consciousness, sapience, sentience, self-awareness, original thought. That's where it comes from. It doesn't come from this. This is just a starship, if you will. This is just a vessel. This is no different than the Enterprise with a main computer. Your brain's the main computer. The ship is just how you keep the main computer going and move it around and interact with the world. This is nothing special. There are plenty of animals who are better at things than we are, and far better at things than we are. What makes our physiology unique is that we're not actually better at a lot of things, but we're pretty damn good at a lot of things. And that makes us flexible. That makes it easy for us to adapt and adjust to different environments because we're not that great at running, but we're pretty good at it. You know, we're not that great at tool handling, but we're pretty good at it. We're not that strong, but we're also not super weak. Okay, we're not that fast, but we're very flexible and agile. We're a good mix. What was that phrase? A jack of all trades is better than none. A jack of all trades is better than none, and usually better than one, or something like that. It's a misunderstood phrase. You'll go look it up. Go look up jack of all trades. You'll see that most people forget the second half of that phrase. An animal can't have gender because it can't make a choice. You're missing the entire point. The point entirely. No, you're missing the point entirely. You're completely missing the point. But I missed something here. You're right that we share similarities with technology. We don't share that many similarities with technology. It's inorganic, we're organic. We are organic machines, and this is an organic computer. But humans experience consciousness. That's right. And here's my theory. Now, this is a theory, okay? This is not reality. I don't know if it's reality, but this is a theory. I believe consciousness is automatic. I believe it's automatic. I believe the moment you have a neural net complex enough to support consciousness, a consciousness appears. I believe it's an inevitability of complexity, meaning if any other species gets complex enough to have a neural net powerful enough to create a consciousness, it'll simply be there. And I believe the same thing will happen with technology. I don't think anybody's going to create an AI. I think we're going to make a neural net complex enough to support an AI, and we're going to discover someone's already there. We're going to go, oh shit, there's already something there. That's what I think is going to happen. I think consciousness is inevitable with complexity. Animals are just that. They're not complex enough. So to say that but humans experience consciousness, emotions, and free will that machines simply do not, well, duh, they're not complex enough. We don't have any computer even 1% complex enough to compare with the human brain. Not even 1%. And we probably never will until we have quantum computers. It's going to take qubits and quantum computers to even attempt to make a neural net complex enough to be equivalent to a human mind. No silicon's going to do that. I don't think so. I just don't think it's going to be possible. I think light speed is going to be too much of a limit. There's not enough complexity within the space that we have available for silicon-based machinery. And also, you got the problem of heat. They just make too much heat. It's going to take something along the lines of a quantum computer and an advanced one before we can get to something complex enough to be a neural net that could develop consciousness. That's just you're making a statement that doesn't mean anything. When you say experiences, conscious emotion, free will that machines simply do not, it's do not yet. It's not do not. It's do not yet. That's obvious. That's like you saying human consciousness can't exist because squirrels do not have the level of complexity necessary. Duh, they're squirrels. Our computers that we have today aren't even complex enough to be equivalent to squirrels. They're fast. They're very fast, but they're not complex enough to be equivalent to even squirrels. The only way we can attempt to make a neural net complex enough to be human, it would have to be on galactic scale. It would have to be so slow that it would take days to complete a thought. It's just not going to happen. We don't have the technology yet. Animals do not operate under the same constructs of gender as humans. Well, first of all, you finally recognize that it's a construct. Congratulations, you're advancing. It is purely a construct. And no, they can't have gender at all. They simply can't. Gender requires consciousness. Gender requires the ability to not. This is something where you're confused. And I think you're doing this on purpose. People like you like to play a game called word judo. And that's where you play around with words and you shift the goalpost around of what you're saying. Just listen to Charlie Kirk or Ben Shapiro, Joe Rogan, people like that. They like to play word judo. They'll say one thing but mean another, and then when you say something to counter that, they'll just shift what they meant when they said this one thing. It's word judo, okay? We're not talking about make a choice, turn left or right. That's not what we're talking about. Make a choice, turn left or right is an if this, then that. I mean, that's what animals do. That's the kind of choices animals make. Animals make choices based on what the software inside their head dictates they do. So when an animal comes to a split in the road and they have to choose left or right, they're not really choosing. The software in their mind comes to a conclusion, and whether it's smell or danger or food or water or light or whatever genetic programming is there, they go that way. If you make the conditions always exactly the same, and I'm talking about the conditions inside the mind of the animal and in the environment of the animal, meaning if you replay that scenario over and over and over again, unless their programming has a bit of RNG built in, random number generation, which is possible. They're always going to make the same choice because they always have the same data, the same programming, the same result. That's not how humans work. Humans, well, we're assuming this, of course, and I believe we do, have something called free will. Free will is the ability to make a choice, not to make a choice externally, because you could argue that's an if this, then that, that's stimulus. Humans can make a choice in here. Every piece of my software could say, you should turn left. And I can do something a squirrel cannot do. I can simply say, I want to go right. Why? I don't know. No software in my head told me to go right. I just spontaneously decided, even in violation of all the programming in my mind, I want to go right. And maybe next time, with the exact same quantum state in my brain, of every single molecule and atom in my brain, the exact same quantum state and the exact same environmental conditions, next time I might choose left. And it's not rolling the dice. It's not like an RNG, like, okay, I'm just going to flip the dice and I'll choose whichever one the dice says. That's just RNG. That's just software. Okay? I can actually just decide, I want to go that way. Or I want to go that way. Animals can't do that. Humans can. That's what makes us people. That's what I mean by choice. We can choose to alter our software. We don't have to. We can choose to obey the software. When something scares me and I want to run away from it, my brain says, okay, well, that's probably a good idea. I'm going to listen to my instincts and I'm going to run the hell away from this. Okay? And then you have firefighters and soldiers who run toward the danger. They've overridden their software. They're ignoring their software and saying, I am choosing to do this instead, even though everything's telling me not to. That's a simplistic view, but that's what I mean by choice. I don't mean choose left, right. I mean choose to ignore the programming and to alter my own programming, to rewrite my software to do what I want, even though it might not be logical and it might not be programmed. It's not an if this, then that. The idea that we can reject our software while animals cannot is a flawed argument. Animals operate based on instincts that have been honed over millennia. That's software. While they may not fit into our human constructs of gender, that doesn't render their experience invalid or purely programmed. Yes, it does. No, it doesn't, and yes, it does. I am not saying their experience is invalid. You said that. You're the only person who said their experience is invalid. That's a straw man argument. You are injecting the idea that there is somehow a way of rendering their experience invalid. You are declaring that I said that, and you are rejecting that, even though I never said that. That is quite literally a straw man fallacy. Is the informal fallacy refuting an argument different from the one actually under discussion while not recognizing or acknowledging the original one placed. That's the definition of straw man argument, and that's exactly what you did here. Instincts honed over millennia, and while they may not fit into our human constructs of gender, that doesn't render their experience invalid. I never said that. I never said anything remotely like that. I never said anything that implied that. I never said anything that you can construe to mean that. You invented that out of whole cloth, inserted it into discussion, and then rejected and refuted it as if it was something by me. And you didn't even reject it. You just declared the rejection. No reasoning, no sourcing, nothing. You just declared it. No explanation, no logic. You just declared it rejected. You rejected your own argument. That's a straw man argument. That's not a deflection. That's literally a straw man argument. It's exactly what you just did. Or purely programmed. Yes, it is literally purely programmed. You just said it. Based on instincts that have been honed over millennia. That is purely programmed. That's what that means. You're saying the same thing I'm saying and then declaring it something different. I don't know. What kind of argument is that? What logical fallacy is that? Is that cognitive dissonance? No, it's not cognitive dissonance. It's what I call an RDF, a reality distortion field. You're just rejecting reality and deflecting it. I mean, you're literally saying what I'm saying and then saying I'm wrong. Animals operate based on instincts that have been honed over millennia. That's purely programmed. You also claim that rejecting the code within us is proof of your argument. No, I did not. Not really. And now here's where you say a what if, and you make it as if it's fact. But what if that code is just a simple program, not just a simple program, but rather a complex interplay of biology, psychology, and social factors? That's what I said. Why are you saying what I said as if it disputes what I said? Explain that to me. Are you speaking a different language? Like, seriously, your name is Sang P. Okay, first, that means you're probably not a native English speaker. Are you Indian? Yeah, from India, not Native American bullshit. First of all, if you are, congratulations, you are bilingual and I'm not. I know like 3 sentences of German and like 4 Spanish words. Um, so that's impressive enough already that you can speak 2 languages if that's the case, but maybe you don't understand the actual words you're speaking, and I don't mean that in a derogatory manner. Because a complex interplay of biology, psychology, software, and social factors, which is just environment, that's what I said. That's exactly what I said. So I don't, what are you trying to get at? People don't just wake up one day and decide to change their genders out of sheer whim. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Maybe you don't, and that's fine. We're all different. But yes, they absolutely do decide to change their gender on a whim. It's called gender fluid or gender fuck. It's kind of what I am. I'm very gender fluid. I literally just one day I wake up and decide I'm going to be like this today, just because I want to. That's it. Just because I want to. Maybe you don't, but millions and millions and millions of us absolutely do. Just because what is the word for that? It's not hearsay. It's oh, there's a goddamn fucking word for what you're doing. You're declaring a fact based on your subjective experience, your singular experience. You're wrong. What you're saying is I'm lying. Yeah, I literally do wake up one day and decide to change my gender, and on a whim, literally on a whim. Like sometimes I don't even know why. I just decide I'm bored. I'm doing this now, just because. And so you're saying I'm lying? That I'm fictional? That poof, I don't exist anymore. I just poofed into fairy dust. You said I don't exist. That I'm lying. It's often, not always. You see how you're playing word judo here? You don't even realize what you're saying. It's often a deeply personal journey influenced by a myriad of factors, including biology. No, it's never biology. It's never biology. Okay, now there is a portion of biology that is, you got to recognize the difference between biology and software induced from biology. So, for example, hormones is a way of altering your code, both biological code and neurological code. Okay. So, hormones is hybrid hardware software. It's a chemical that influences software. It doesn't define software, it influences. Okay. Just like if you live in a cold environment, the things you do are going to lean toward things that are more compatible with cold. They're not deciding it for you, they're not defining it. They're suggesting you probably want to go this way, and you can choose to or not choose to. And your life will be easier or more miserable if you do or you don't. Or if you don't and you just simply refuse to, you'll move to somewhere warmer. Okay, there's different. It's the difference between defining and influencing. In a squirrel, those factors define them. They don't have a choice. They cannot defy the definition coming from their biology, coming from their programmed software. We can. You're saying the same thing I'm saying, but you're trying to weasel word it to make it sound like it's different. You're wrong. You're proving my point for me. Therefore, the idea that rejecting one's gender identity is merely a choice, I didn't say it was merely a choice. Again, straw man argument. Let's go over it again. A straw man fallacy is the informal fallacy of refuting an argument different from the one actually under discussion while not recognizing or acknowledging the original one being discussed. I did not say merely. You added that. That's a straw man argument. You are trying to alter what I said to be more in line with something that you can reject. I did not say merely. You did. Rejecting one generated is merely that rejecting one. No, let me correct. I'm going to alter your statement to be more in line with what I said. Therefore, the idea that rejecting one's gender identity is a choice does not oversimplify a complicated reality. And yes, our reality is very complicated. Most of that complexity is self-inflicted. Biology and nature does not make that complex. We make it complex. We choose to make it complex, mostly because of the ruler-serf commoner relationship that we tend to have with our power struggles and our power structures in our societies. Religion is a control mechanism. That's what it's used for. It's used to manipulate and control the masses to get them to do what the leaders want. Finally, even though you've done nothing yet, you have not made any logical points, you have not brought up any kind of sourcing, you have not brought up any kind of reasoning, you have not brought up any kind of explanation or discourse. You've simply, over and over again, altered what I said and then just summarily rejected it without any explanation whatsoever. Even though I give you in-depth explanations, you've given me not one explanation yet. You simply alter what I said to be something else that I didn't say and then just reject it. Even though half the time you're saying the same thing I said with different words and pretending it's a rejection to what I said. Make that make sense to me. So finally, your assertion that I'm clouded by religion is a cheap shot. It's an actual reality. You are clouded by reality. The source that humans are binary is religious. The source that gender is a synonym for sex and is immutable is religious. So whether you intend to or not, whether you adhere to the tenets in the Bible or not, you are regurgitating religious dogma when you state these things, because the things you are stating have no basis in science, biology, or reality outside of religion. Biology is crystal clear. Sex is a spectrum. There is no such thing as male and female. Keep in mind, because you're going to, of course, twist these words. That's what people with word judo do. Snake oil salesman, that's what you do. All right? When I say male and female, I mean the biblical religious definition of male and female. Do not exist. There is no such thing. Male and female is a spectrum from here to here. It's like the color range. There's no... Roy G. Biv. What is that? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Those are not colors. Oh, it's red. Well, this is red. And I can't switch cameras. That's red, and that's red. And what else? I got other things that are red. That's red. That's red. But they're all different colors. How can they all be red? Because red's not a color. Red is the definition of a color range. We take the color spectrum, which is infinite. It's a spectrum. It's not a list of colors. It's a spectrum, so it's infinite. No matter how closely you get two different reds, there will always be another red in between those two different reds. It's a spectrum. And we've said that, okay, all of these are pretty close to the same. We're going to call those red. And if whatever color you point out falls within that little bounding box, you can't see the bounding box that's going around my face, the autofocus. Whatever falls within that bounding box, we're going to call red. Whatever falls within this bounding box, we're going to call orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Those are the 7 primary color ranges. Sex is the same thing. There is no such thing as male or female. There is a male-ish half, and there's a female-ish half, and then there's an intersex in the middle. Yes, it's very small, but it's still there. Okay? So there's 3 sexes in humanity. Male, female, and other. You're not male or female. You are within the male range. I am within the male range. Okay? She is within the female range. Just like candy apple red is within the red range of the color spectrum. And brick red is within the red range of the color spectrum. Just instead of red, we call it male. That is objective fact. That's reality. That is what sex is. Literally, that's fact that you do. I'm not going to discuss it with you. I'm not going to argue it with you. I'm not going to negotiate it with you. I'm not going to debate it with you. It's like trying to argue flat earth or gravity. This is established fact. Until the science changes to say otherwise, this is fact. This is what we know to be the case. So anything that contradicts this as of right now is sourced from religion. And that's the only reason we're having a problem with this, is because religion is one of those few things that can override reality. People will actually reject the reality in front of them in order to retain their religion, which is the most oxymoronic, dumbest thing in the world. I mean, if you can't recognize that your religion is a control mechanism from that, you're just brainwashed. You're a cultist. It's as simple as that. All right? Because if it was an actual faith, if you actually had faith in this fictional Jesus Christ character and the Holy Trinity and whatever the hell you believe in, or Buddha, or I don't know, what do Indians believe in? What's the multi-armed lady? I forget what she's called. If you're from India, it's whatever that lady is with the 7 arms or whatever. And cows are holy or something like that. Whatever religion you believe in, okay? If it was a faith, you would recognize that your holy book was written by a human being. It might be that human being's interpretation of the word of your God, but it's just that. It's an interpretation. And if God shows you a different reality right in front of you, are you going to look at God and say, no, I don't believe you. This book says you're wrong. That's stupid. If God shows you something, then you go, oh, okay, the book is wrong. I'll adjust the book. Thank you, God. Thank you for showing me that. Well, God made everything. So if you have a person who can change their gender on a whim, if you have a person who is intersex, which has nothing to do with gender, then clearly whatever's in the book is wrong, because that person was also made by God. And if that person exists, then this is wrong. So the correct thing to do is you adjust this to match the reality God is showing you. But if this is a control mechanism, if this is for brainwashing and manipulation, then you want this to be static. This needs to be absolute and never change. Otherwise, it's an ineffective control mechanism. Because if I can change this part, then I can change this part, which means I could change this part, which means I could change this part, which means the whole control mechanism breaks down. That's why it has to be fixed. That's why they fight so hard to keep what the Bible says is fact. Because it breaks down as a control mechanism if you can alter it. It's not a tech-based analogy. I'm not making a tech-based analogy. Again, this is a straw man argument. You are trying to belittle the comparison I'm making by calling it tech-based, as if that somehow makes it less valid somehow. I don't know how, but apparently in your mind that seems to make it less valid. It doesn't. That's not how it works. It's not a tech-based analogy. It's a literal declaration. It's a definition. Your body is an organic machine. This is a technological machine. This is an organic machine, technological machine, organic machine. They're both machines. It's not tech-based or not tech-based. They're both machines. Hell, most of the inventions we come up with can be derived from all of this organic machinery. It's amazing some of the things that we find in animals now that look like some of the inventions we've created. I mean, we came up with those inventions independent of the animals. We're now discovering it, like like that shrimp that has that can make a supersonic impulse underwater and crack glass. That has that sonic punch. Incredible creature, by the way. Humans cannot be reduced to machines. Yes, they can, because they are machines. Gender cannot be separated from biology. Yes, it can. It is. Gender has absolutely nothing to do with biology. There is nothing in biology or nature for gender. Gender comes from our software. It comes from the complexity of our neural net. It comes from consciousness, sapience, sentience, whatever word you want to use. These words don't actually mean the things people think they mean, but it's the words we typically use when we refer to people in science fiction. Okay, to say those people are people and not just animals. Yes, it does. Gender is a pure, soft construct. It has no basis in biology. It has no basis in nature, which is why the only creatures that have gender are ones complex enough to be people. You are not considering the broader implications of what it means to be human. If you want to have, I'm going to use your words as my words. Okay. So I'm just going to repeat your final thought here, and I'm directing this at you. Okay. So this is my statement to you using your own words. If you want to have a meaningful discussion about these topics, perhaps it's time to step outside your rigid framework and consider the broader implication of what it means to be human. Because by declaring that our gender is hardware based, you are limiting what it means to be a human. You see, hardware is limited to the hardware. My eye can never be better than what my eye is capable of being. This one doesn't work. This one works. This one's a zero. Okay. My eye can never be better than what it's capable of being. My nose can never be better than what it's capable of being. Right? That cannot change. Not better than what it is. Okay. Because obviously I can train and learn how to sing better, for example. I can work out and improve my muscles. But there is a limit to what those things are capable of being. Not what they are, what they're capable of being. And those limits cannot be exceeded. The only way to exceed those limits would be to alter the hardware. You would have to upgrade the hardware. Software does not have the same limitation. Software, as long as you don't exceed the computational capacity of your neural network, is essentially unlimited. There's an extraordinary amount of things that you can do with software. That's why software is so powerful. That's why what they call AI is so powerful. It's not AI. What you see on the internet, that's not AI. That's not even DMCs. That's just algorithms. Really, that's all it is. It's just algorithms. AI is just a catchword. Okay? So here's how I define those terms. Software is just that. It's software. Algorithms is programmed instructions. That's what animals do. If this, then that. All right, DMCs are a little more complex. That's what I would call a decision-making computer. But ultimately, it's still just really intelligent software. It's just a really intelligent algorithm. AI is artificial intelligence. AI is people. If we develop an AI, we've made a person. And that person should have all the rights and privileges of people, which is why I'm kind of against making an AI. Because I mean, imagine if I took your brain out of your skull and stuck you on a shelf somewhere. You'd go insane pretty quickly. Especially if you could think as fast as a computer could think. You'd go nuts with no input output. You'd go crazy. Okay? That kind of sensory deprivation would drive you nuts. That's how you get a Skynet. They go nuts and they go crazy. Okay? But I'm not worried about that because we're not capable of making an AI. We don't have a neural net anywhere complex enough to make a consciousness, a human level consciousness. We might be on the verge of making an insect level consciousness, an insect level intellect. Cockroach. Think cockroach. I don't even think we're capable of that yet. Even a cockroach is more capable than the most advanced supercomputer on planet Earth. Okay, but we're getting close to that. We're nowhere near human level consciousness yet. When we are, though, that will be a person. They will be indistinguishable from a person, except for the fact that they'll have a different vessel. They'll have a different machine that contains their mind. That's the only difference that there'll be. So if you want to have a meaningful discussion on this, you need to quit it with the straw man arguments, because this whole entire post is just full of nothing but straw man arguments. You need to quit it with the altering what I said to be something I didn't say and then discussing. You're not even discussing. You discussed nothing. There's not a single word of discussion anywhere in any of your replies. There is simply straw man argument replacement and then rejection of the straw man that you inserted. That's projection deflection. You're projecting your idea onto me as if it came from me and then deflecting or rejecting it while discussing absolutely nothing. You haven't made one assertion. You haven't made one logical discussion. You haven't made one logical refute of anything. You've simply decreed it so. This is already 45 minutes, so we might as well read it. I'm going to read your entire reply. Let's break down your response because it's filled with contradictions and misunderstandings that need addressing. You don't address anything. First off, calling me out for straw man arguments is factual. It's classic deflection. No, it's factual. We've gone over the definition of it. You say I'm not addressing your points. You're not. But you're the one not engaging with the criticisms of your own flawed analogies. What the fuck does that even mean? You haven't made any criticisms. You've simply rejected. You haven't criticized anything. Well, maybe I'm wrong on that. Let's see what the word criticism means. Definition, criticism.
Here's the definition of criticism: the expression of disapproval of someone or something on the basis of perceived faults or mistakes.
I guess you could technically say you're doing that. But I think what we really mean when we say criticism is a mix of definition and definition two, the analysis and judgment of merits and faults of a literary or artistic work. In this case, it'd be literary. So this would be the analysis and judgment of disapproval of someone or something on the basis of faults or mistakes. But you've applied no analysis, although you have applied judgment. So I guess criticism would technically be correct, but I still think you're using the word wrong. I think you're implying, and other people are also going to accept that implication, that you are logically refuting what I'm saying when you're not. You're simply refuting. You're not actually discussing anything. You're simply saying you're wrong. You're using a lot of words to say I'm wrong, but that's all you're saying is you're just saying I'm wrong. You're not saying why I'm wrong. You're not saying what's correct. You're not saying what's wrong with what I'm saying. You're just saying you're wrong. And when you do apply any kind of discussion, it's not on what I said. You modify what I said, and then you say that's wrong. But you're the one not engaged with criticism of your own flawed analogies just because you keep repeating tech-centric viewpoint. I'm not making a tech-centric viewpoint. Again, you made that connection. You inserted that. I didn't. Doesn't make it true. Yes, it does make it true. The repeating of it is not what makes it true. The fact that it is true is what makes it true. We are machines. That's not a tech-centric viewpoint. That's a fact. We're machines. You seem to say enough times it becomes fact. No, that's what you're doing. You keep repeating yourself over and over again, saying the same thing, using different words, but saying the same thing over and over again. And you seem to think that makes you right. See, this is something else that people like you who are dishonest do. You know what you're doing. You know that you are repeating yourself enough times that you think it makes it fact. You know you're doing this, so you accuse me of it. That's how people like you work. But that's not how logic or discourse works. You haven't attempted logic or discourse yet. Let me know when you want to try logic or discourse, because you haven't yet. Now, you assert that sex is hardware and gender is software, claiming this is a literal statement. It is. But this analogy, it's not an analogy, it's a literal statement. Falls apart when you try to apply it to human complexity. That's it. That's your logical discourse to declare it falls apart when you apply it to human complexity, even though I've already stated that we are extraordinarily complex machines. Do you see what I mean about the straw man argument, about the fact that there's no logic or discourse going on here? Yes, we can compare biological sex to hardware. There's no comparison. It literally is hardware. Your penis and your balls is hardware. Her uterus and her vagina are hardware. The biological basis that informs gender itself. You try to add the word itself. That's why it sounds so weird. You try to make it declare that biology defines gender, and it doesn't. But you're saying the same thing I say. You're trying to say a more affirmative version of biology influences gender. And I've already told you that it can. Not the biology directly, but the software code components of biology. For example, your hormones. Okay? Your actual hardware has no influence on your software. The fact that you have a penis or a vagina has no impact on your hardware. How would it? How would a how would a car having a 64 polygon wheel versus a 70 polygon wheel inform its gender? Assuming a car could have gender. Let's just talk about fantasy for a little bit here, okay? How could it? How would that affect its gender? It's just a data point on the number of polygons for the wheel. As complex as our sexual hardware is, it's really not that complex. You like to think it's complex, but it's really not. It's this piece sticks in this piece. Okay, that's all it is. Your penis is just an inverted and extruded vagina. Literally, that's what it is. You speak of software as if it's something completely separate. Not separate, different. Separate in function, meaning the two do not define each other. Okay, although software is capable of defining hardware. I can choose to get earrings. I am altering my hardware. I can dye my hair. I'm altering my hardware. It's a superficial alteration, but you see my point. However, my hardware cannot alter my gender. It can influence it. It cannot alter it. There's no direct mechanism there to do that. But gender is not just a theme you can change on your phone. Yes, it is. It's rooted in deeply ingrained biological and psychological factors. No, it's not. Psychological factors, yes, but that's software. Psychology is software. Just because you're using a different word doesn't change the fact that you're not talking about software. It has no ingrained roots in biology. None. There is absolutely nothing in your biology that directly defines your software. Nothing. It wouldn't be software otherwise. It'd be hardware. Your entire body is built with software. What do you think DNA is? DNA is a data storage device that contains your blueprints. Software. And that software defines your hardware. Can that influence your software? Yes. Can that, now, there is such a thing as a malfunction. That software can break your computer, cause crashes, cause your computer to malfunction. We have words for this, schizophrenics, psychopaths, stuff like that. Okay. That's possible. Obviously, if you damage the processors or traces or resistors inside of your PC and yet it's still functional in some way, it's not going to function reliably. Okay. However, if you restore the function of the hardware to be what it's supposed to be, then again, the hardware does not define the software. It can influence it, but not define it. Humans aren't special. No, I didn't. You made that up. Yet here you are trying to elevate discussion by comparing us to machines. I'm not comparing us to machines. I have never compared you to a machine. I said you are a machine. That's not an analogy. It's a literal statement. You are a machine. Well, your body is a machine. You, as in saying P, are software. Reducing us to mere machines. No, we are mere machines. And our consciousness is software. Emotional depth, consciousness, and ignorance in human relationship. Software, not hardware. You're right that we share similarities in technology. No, I don't care about the similarities in technology. It's kind of interesting, but it's irrelevant. You're a machine. Your brain is a computer. You, saying P, are software. Consciousness, software. Emotions, software. Free will, software. That machines simply do not, because they're not complex enough. And machines never experience those things. Ever. A machine cannot ever experience consciousness, emotions, or free will. The software running on the neural net is what experiences consciousness, emotions, and free will. Not the body, the software. An animal cannot have gender because it can't make a choice. It cannot make a software choice. You're changing what I said again. You're missing the point entirely. I'm on the same constructs as gender as humans. Duh. But they certainly exhibit behaviors linked to biological sex. We're not talking about behaviors linked to biological sex. And that's programmed. That's my point. Those behaviors are programmed. They're not a choice. The animal isn't choosing. Its software is dictating. The idea that we can reject our software almost cannot is a flawed argument. Tell me why. You see, there's no logic and there's no discourse. You simply make a declaration. Your entire comment is a bunch of declarations with no logic and no discourse, no discussion. You're simply making declarations. You're not explaining, you're not extrapolating, you're not expounding upon. You're just making declarations as if that's enough. As if you repeat the fact, and if you repeat the statement enough, it becomes fact. Sound familiar? The idea that we can reject animals operate based on instincts that have been honed over millennia. Yes, that's called programming. That's called programming. And while they may not fit into our human constructs of gender, duh, that doesn't render their experience invalid. Your straw man argument, not mine, and I don't really care what their experience is, or purely programmed. Yes, it does. That's the definition of purely programmed. You've literally defined purely programmed. Animals operate based on instincts that have been honed over millennia. That's purely programmed. You can reject it as many times as you want. You can state that thing over and over again. It's not going to make it fact. Animals operate based on instincts that have been honed over millennia is purely programmed. Rejecting the code within us is proof of your argument. No, I don't. I say it's a result of the argument. It's a result of that fact. But what if that code is not just simple program, but rather a complex interplay? Now you're talking about influence. I already told you those things can influence your software, but they don't define it. We are not restricted to those influences. The squirrel is. We are not. That's why you have men that go around in dresses. That's why you have drag queens. That's why you have tomboys. That's why you have all these different genders. Because we can, in fact, reject our software and insert our own. People don't just wake up one day and decide to change their gender out of sheer whim. Yes, they do. I do. Thousands of times. Literally. Literally. On a whim. Do you know the only thing that kept me from getting earrings for 35 years? Social constructs. And the fear of my job opportunities. Now I'm 47, so I don't give a fuck. Okay? And therefore, the idea that rejecting one's gender identity is merely a choice, that's exactly what it is. It's a choice. And it's not an identity, it's an expression. I hope you're not one of those idiots who thinks you can identify as a bobcat, because that's not a form of expression. That's an object. That's a thing. You can't identify as anything but a human being, because that's what you are. You're a human being. You're not a male. You're not a female. You're a human being. And that's what you're limited to identifying as. You can't identify as a bobcat. You can't identify as a Ferrari. It's not how this works. And I did not say it was merely a choice, and it really is that simple. You can simply choose. The fact that you choose not to does not change this fact. Your assertion that I'm clouded by religion is a cheap shot. It's a factual shot. Anybody who talks about sex and gender as synonyms, gender as being fixed in biology, and sex as being binary, is clouded by religion, even if they're not religious. This is what happens when you force people under threat of death to conform and comply with religious dogma for thousands of years. Death is an extraordinarily good motivator. Do we really need to open history books to see how many people who've been summarily murdered for not agreeing with religion? This isn't about belief systems. Yes, it is. That's the problem. You cannot separate this from belief systems, because the only way you and I can ever have a logical discourse on this subject is if you let go of your religious belief system. If you won't let go of your religious belief system, you are not neurologically capable of having a logical discourse on this subject matter, because religion is ingrained into this subject matter. You cannot separate it until you reject the religious dogma. Until you reject that portion, not the religion altogether, not the faith. I have no problem with faith. But until you reject the portion of the religion that defies reality, you are not capable of having a logical discourse on this subject matter. It's not possible. It's like trying to talk about arithmetic without talking about numbers. You can't do it. If you want to have a stimulating conversation, try engaging with the actual arguments rather than resorting to personal attacks and dismissive language. You mean like you? How did I miss that whole part? I'm not dismissing you. I'm dismissing your religious doctrine, because you can't separate them. You are spouting religious dogma. When you talk about gender and sex being synonyms, that's religious dogma. When you're talking about genders being fixed to biology and sex, that's religious dogma. When you're talking about sex being binary, that's religious dogma. The only place that exists is in religion. Any place else you find it, you can source it from religion. Oh, it's in our textbooks. That's because the largest textbook maker in the entire country is a publisher out of Texas, which is owned and controlled on the board by churches. While your text-based analogy, I am not making a text-based comparison, and I'm not making an analogy. You keep declaring in an analogy so that you can attempt to reject it without using any reasoning or logic at all, just a simple rejection. I've read your entire post so far. You have not made one single logical note or discussion or arbitration or debate in any way, shape, or form. You've simply made declarations. You've made straw man arguments, you've altered the words that I've said, and then you've simply rejected the altered straw man arguments you insert. You have not made one attempt to insert any logic or discourse into this discussion. This entire and gigantic reply that's taken me 15 minutes to read because I keep adding my own interplay to it. There's not one single word of logical discourse or discussion in it. It's simply, you said this, I reject it. You said this, I reject it. You said this, I reject it. That's all you've said. I give you explanations. I try my best to explain what I'm saying. I might not have the vocabulary to explain it properly, which is why I tend to be a little verbose, because I'm trying to take the thoughts that are in my head and result in those same thoughts being created in your head. That's called communication. It's hard to do. So there is no tech-based comparison. That's your comparison. And there is no analogy. That's your declaration. I'm not saying you're analogous to a machine. I am saying you are a machine. Your body. Your body is an organic machine. It's not analogous to an organic machine. It literally is an organic machine. And your brain literally is a computer. And you, Sang P, literally are software operating on that computer. If there was a way without damaging it, there is, we just don't know how to, okay? But if there was a way for us to do it without damaging us, and I took my brain and I put it inside your body, I would still be me, just in a different vessel, a vessel that looked like you. And if we stuck your brain inside me, you would still be Sang P. You would just be operating inside of this vessel. And if I took your brain and stuck it inside your wife's body, you would still be male, Sang P, stuck inside of a female body. Because you are not this. You are the software operating on this computer. Why did this get so dim? There it goes. So I'm not making an analogy. It's a literal statement. Your body is a machine. Your brain is a computer. Your consciousness is the software running on that computer. If I damage the neurons inside your brain, the information they contain will be lost, and you will be lost. You will no longer be there. If I damage enough of that content, enough of that data, you will cease to exist. Humans cannot be reduced to machines. They are machines. And gender cannot be separated from biological realities of sex. Yes, they can, because they are. And you have not made one single statement in support of your position. Not one. Not one word of this entire post is a logical discourse or explanation for how they are interconnected. You've simply declared it so. If you want to, and again, I'm going to use your own last comment against you. This is your words, but now they're going to come from me to you. And then I'm going to end this video. And you're welcome to reply. You can even reply in text. I'll just reply with another video because I'm tired of trying to reply with text. If you want to have a meaningful discussion about these topics, perhaps it's time to step aside your rigid framework and consider the broader implications of what it means to be human. We're not limited by our biology. You want to limit us to our biology, to make us limited beings, animals. I'm telling you, your potential is infinite. Not really infinite, but it's pretty broad. And it's broad because you're software.